Next on the news. A trip to the end of the line, Little Odessa, where Russian Americans are praying for an end to this war. They have a message for Putin.
I think that he's drunk with power.
They want their families out of Europe, and New York City's mayor is promising that, unveiling a plan to expedite refugees to Brooklyn. Then pain in the pocket, filling up, going way up.
It's pretty ridiculous.
Ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
We could be just days away from $7 a gallon. Plus, it was knocked down, but now this Brooklyn Crucifix is back. Why it sends a message to the haters. I'm Christine Persichetti. Current News starts right now. There's an enclave in the southernmost part of Brooklyn where the subway ride gives you a taste of Eastern Europe much quicker than if you boarded an international flight. The war in Ukraine has shaken the tight-knit community in so-called Little Odessa. Current News' Jessica Easthope spoke with residents there who are protesting and praying the conflict comes to a close.
Thousands of miles away on a map, but here in Brighton Beach, Russians and Ukrainians are standing together in resolve, strength, and even stronger opinions about the war. Here on the boardwalk,
Putin is a killer!
Putin is a killer!
Anger about the war in Ukraine and about the man who started it, Russian President Vladimir Putin.
I think that he's drunk with power, and I'm not sure what goals he tries to pursue, but I just hope that he will wake up one day and look in the mirror and ask himself, is he happy with what he's done? And one day the answer will be no, and he will step away and he will keep his hands off the people out there.
The boardwalk is in Brooklyn's Brighton Beach, where the elevated train noisily rumbles over businesses that have signs in Russian. So many people from countries of the former Soviet Union live here in the neighborhood known as Little Odessa.
Killer.
Lilia Rakhmangolova is Russian.
Killer.
She says Putin is a killer. This should not have happened. We live together with Ukrainian brothers and sisters. This has to be stopped. Brighton Bazaar grocery store customer Michael moved here about 20 years ago from Moscow.
Government of Ukraine and government of Russia should negotiate it. The war shouldn't be. I agree with this.
And up the road a bit is the Brooklyn Banya, a traditional Russian bathhouse with a TV tuned to Russian news and clientele from countries of the former Soviet Union. Ukrainian owner Alana Kruglak says everyone has always gotten along here.
And now all of a sudden we're being divided, saying, you're Ukrainian, I hate you, you're Russian, I hate you. It's just not so.
Back at the beach, protesters say this is unbearable.
I cry every day, I read the news. Please hold on, and we're together here for you and there for you, and everything will be good because there's no other way.
People here continue to live together in peace and pray for their families and communities back home as they hope talks between the two countries end in a resolution. In Brighton Beach, Jessica Easthope, Current News.
New York City's mayor paid a visit to Little Odessa as well. He says because of the war, business is down in predominantly Russian and Ukrainian communities. He hopes that New Yorkers will put their prejudices aside and come to the community's aid. On Sunday, the mayor stopped at a local Jewish center. The synagogue is currently collecting donations for Ukraine. Right now, they need diapers and baby formula most. He also stopped and met with local business owners. Not only are many struggling to survive economically, but they're worried about their families' safety abroad. Speaking of that, New York City is working with the feds to help Ukrainians reunite with war-torn family. The mayor announced that during his visit to Brighton Beach. They plan to expedite refugee status for Ukrainians so that Ukrainian New Yorkers can bring their loved ones to Brooklyn. The city has also set up a website so people can access legal resources, including applications for temporary protected status. For more information on those legal services and to apply for protected status, just go to www.one.nyc.gov. And from the streets of New York to Ukraine, inside a refugee's desperate journey, more than 1.5 million people have fled the country, and it's estimated that nearly half of those refugees have crossed into Poland, awaiting their next stop. But the country doesn't have a single refugee camp. Poles are taking in Ukrainians displaced by the war themselves. So many civilians are offering temporary lodging that authorities say they have no immediate need for camps. Their actions have even received praise from Pope Francis. Despite the goodwill, Arwa Damon tells us it's been a long, sad journey. She's at a receiving center on the border now.
What we're starting to see is this sort of sad rhythm that starts to play out in reception centers like this one. The buses arrive, the people file off exhausted, mostly women and children, but then there is this pretty incredible effort by an army of volunteers to provide them with food, water, diapers, toys, for the children, clothing to replace everything it is that they had to leave behind. But you also need to remember that just because someone has managed to reach safety, they are so far from being even remotely okay. Those who have been able to flee, the vast majority of them are just utterly racked and consumed with guilt and fear. Fear for those who were left behind, guilt because they actually had to make that impossible decision to leave. And for the vast majority, it really has boiled down to saving their children. But they have left their men behind, their husbands, their sons, their fathers. Conversations here start to take on a different and perhaps to a certain degree unique feel, because you have to also keep in mind that Poland and Ukraine, the populations they're quite close. And so the way that the war is percolating over the borders, permeating over the borders, that is having a separate impact on the Polish population here, who is also now trying to figure out how to absorb these hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians who are coming across the border. But it's also worth noting that when it specifically comes to this conflict in Ukraine, the reception that we're seeing for refugees from all of Ukraine's neighboring countries, that is quite different than previous receptions that, we've seen for refugees from other parts of the world in the past. And I have to say, it's quite heartening to see that, at least in this conflict, refugees are in fact welcome.
That was Arwa Damon reporting. And in thanks to those helping refugees, Pope Francis has decided to send a Vatican envoy to Ukraine. Two top cardinals, Konrad Krajewski and Michael Czerny, will be heading into Ukraine. Their first stop will be at refugee command centers in Poland, and then they'll head to the front lines on a papal mission to meet the people of Ukraine.
Rivolgo il mio accorato appello perché si assicurino davvero I corridoi umanitari e sia garantito e facilitato l'accesso degli aiuti alle zone assediate per offrire il vitale soccorso ai nostri fratelli e sorelle oppressi dalle bombe e dalla paura.
The Pope's decision comes after Russia and Ukraine negotiated a ceasefire to allow civilian evacuations. However, both sides have accused the other of breaking that promise as thousands of lives hang in the balance. A Brooklyn priest knows many of those refugees well. Later in the show, we'll be speaking with Father Sergey Emanuel, the pastor of Guardian Angel Roman Catholic Church. His family is currently hiding in Ukraine, and he's trying to get them to safety from 5,000 miles away. Meanwhile, gas prices in the U.S. have been on the rise since before the invasion even started, and there's no sign it's letting up. In fact, it's only supposed to get worse, much worse.
It's pretty ridiculous.
Ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
88, yeah. That's a lot more than I thought it'd be.
Yesterday midday I filled up for $34. I was up literally probably if not a quarter of a tank. Yes, midday. And right now oh my gosh, that's so, yeah, I can't.
Republicans across the country are criticizing President Joe Biden over his energy policies. They want to ramp up domestic production as a way to help wean the nation off oil from Russia. The sanctions imposed on Russia for its war do not include oil and gas. Overall, the national average price for gas has topped $4 a gallon, an average the country hasn't seen since 2008, when it reached a record high of $4.11. In New York City, a gallon is averaging at around $4.30. That's up nearly 50 cents from when Russia first invaded Ukraine, when the city's average was at just $3.80 a gallon. Experts say in the future we could see prices near $7 a gallon. A shattered crucifix has been resurrected at Saint Athanasius Church in Bensonhurst. The church's pastor, Monsignor David Casado, blessing the new image of Christ on the cross on the first Sunday of Lent. The original crucifix was destroyed last May after a suspect scaled the church's fence and threw the cross to the ground. A week later, that vandal was arrested and charged with criminal mischief as a hate crime. The church raised $25,000 to have the new crucifix built. Pope Francis has accepted the resignation of Brooklyn Auxiliary Bishop and Vicar General Raymond Chappetto. As per canon law, Bishop Chappetto submitted his resignation in August of 2020 when he turned 75. The Astoria native was ordained a priest in 1971 and has served as an auxiliary bishop since 2012. Bishop Chappetto says it's been an honor and a privilege serving the diocese for more than 50 years. And the Bishop of Brooklyn, Robert Brennan, thanked Bishop Chappetto for staying on beyond retirement age to help him transition to the diocese. Effective immediately, Bishop Chappetto will now serve as an auxiliary bishop emeritus. There's a lot more news headed your way. It's a desperate rush to leave anywhere in Ukraine, but why is this particular train station so packed? Plus, his brother is hiding out in Ukraine.
If the Russian soldiers will go there and I will be called, I may be shocked that he is there.
A Brooklyn priest talks about his family who's in the middle of the war zone. And the sky's the limit for this Brooklyn teenager's future. Why he credits his Catholic education for putting him on the right path. A crowd of people desperate to leave Ukraine rushing the doors of a train heading west. With Russian forces now in control of a nuclear power plant in Zaporozhye, people in that area are trying to flee, worried they could be the next casualties of a nuclear disaster.
When Russian troops came closer to Zaporizhia, I decided it was better to get my family out before they entered the city itself.
We hope that we can make it on the train today, because this morning people didn't let us in, even though we have a baby.
And while that couple was at the train station together, only the woman and the baby boarded the train. Her husband had to stay. Ukrainian men here between 18 and 60 cannot leave. They're needed for the fight. A Brooklyn priest knows all about that. His brother is stuck in Ukraine right now. Father Sergey Emanuel, pastor of Guardian Angel Church in Brighton Beach and coordinator of Russian-speaking and Ukrainian immigrants for the Diocese of Brooklyn, joins us now. And Father, first off, how is your family? You've told us before that your brother is actually in hiding.
I just only call to my family who are now, some of the family in Poland, but I can't call to my brother. He says only he is available call to me because he afraid if he is hiding in the basement and if the Russian soldiers will go there and I will be called, I may be shocked that he is there.
Oh my goodness. I know you haven't been getting a lot of sleep. What has this been like for you watching what's happening there?
I don't know. I don't have words for that. I don't have words.
You know, we mentioned earlier in the newscast that the city of New York is working with the federal government to make it easier to get family members in Ukraine here to New York City. What are your thoughts on that? I know you're trying to get your mom here.
Many my parishioners tell me that it is probably not true, because some of them now in the Poland, because U.S. embassy from Ukraine just removed, transferred to Poland. They say that they have rejected because the embassy says it's enough that Poland opened their border and other country. So they tell me that it's not working for them. I don't know. I do not try yet to have an application.
So obviously you don't have much faith in them.
Yes, because very often if I see the mass media, like news from Germany, from Poland, from Ukraine, they say that most of the programs in news they only talking, they promise. It's not action.
Father, as the coordinator of Russian-speaking and Ukrainian immigrants in the Diocese of Brooklyn, tell us how the church is helping the refugees.
The Ukrainian people, our parishioners, and the Ukrainian cultural school asking me that give them a space to collect it, some like medical supplies, other necessary something like sleeping bags, power banks, and we are just sent 2 times, 2 trucks, everything what the people are collecting.
Wow, okay. Father Sergey Emanuel, pastor of Guardian Angel Church, thanks so much for speaking with us. If you'd like to help Father Sergey help his homeland, Guardian Angel Church has a donation box where you can drop off medical supplies, canned food, or checks made out to cash. The church is located at 2978 Ocean Parkway in Brighton Beach. Turning now to the COVID front in New York, where people are starting to stand down. Children in New York City public schools are wearing smiles instead of masks on their faces. As of Monday, masks are now optional for most students. Same goes for Big Apple businesses, where proof of vaccination is also no longer needed. However, vaccine cards and masks are still required at Broadway shows through April, and you still need your mask on the subway, buses, and in taxis. We say most students don't have to wear their masks because the city is still keeping the mask mandate in place for kids under 5. And because of that, a group of local parents is suing. Children 5 and under aren't eligible for COVID vaccines, but these parents say whether or not they mask up should be left up to them and not the city. They argue that the city has to pass a law to enforce the mandate. The former governor of New York, Andrew Cuomo, emerged from his 6-month seclusion on Sunday, marking his first public appearance since he resigned due to sexual harassment allegations. Speaking to the congregation of God's Battalion of Prayer Church in Brooklyn, Cuomo called himself a victim of cancel culture.
The truth is the so-called cancer culture mentality is growing and is dangerous, and Democrats must beware. The actions against me were prosecutorial misconduct. That is clear. They didn't act in the interest of justice. The district attorneys proved that. They acted in their own self-interest. They wanted me out because they wanted my job.
He did not mention that some prosecutors say they have found the accusations credible. Cuomo also seemed to leave the door open for a political comeback, saying, "God isn't done with me yet." In just a few weeks, the Diocese of Brooklyn will welcome close to 400 new Catholics. The soon-to-be believers took an important step in their faith journey this weekend. It's called the rite of election, a ritual where the diocese's bishop accepts that people have done the prep work to become Catholic. The Bishop of Brooklyn, Robert Brennan, taking part in one of 2 ceremonies, this one at St. Patrick's Church in Bay Ridge, the other at Immaculate Conception Church in Jamaica Estates. All of these so-called catechumens will receive baptism at the Easter Vigil. This year, the diocese actually saw a 44% boost in those becoming Catholics since last year. Net TV will be broadcasting Masses live all Holy Week, including the Easter Vigil, the big day for those catechumens. It all kicks off with the Chrism Mass. That's on Tuesday, April 12th at 7:30 p.m. with Bishop Brennan. Then on Holy Thursday, Bishop Brennan will celebrate the Mass of the Lord's Supper at 7 p.m. On Good Friday, he will celebrate 2 services live on Net, the Way of the Cross at 10 a.m. and the Liturgy of the Lord's Passion at 3 p.m. The Easter Vigil with Bishop Brennan will be broadcasted that Saturday at 7:30 p.m. And on Easter Sunday, 3 bishops will celebrate Masses in different languages. Bishop Witold Morjewski will celebrate the 7 a.m. Polish Mass. Bishop Emeritus Nicholas DiMarzio will celebrate the 8 a.m. Italian, and Bishop Brennan will celebrate the 11 a.m. English Mass. Catholic values and a Catholic education are what inspired a teen from the Diocese of Brooklyn to soar. Literally. Thomas Tong says his lifelong career in Catholic schools gave him the edge and drive he needed to follow his dream, one that is achieved by very, very few people. Currents News' Jessica Easthope has his story as he's preparing for takeoff.
This shy kid from Sheepshead Bay is about to start a new chapter. One he says he knew he was destined for. When Thomas Tong graduates from Xavier High School this year, he'll be entering the Air Force Academy, a goal only 10% of applicants can say they've achieved.
It's surreal. It's a big commitment, but it was always my first choice, and I always just wanted to be part of something bigger than myself.
But long before Thomas dreamed of being in an airman's uniform, he was in this uniform at St. Mark's Catholic Academy.
Come on, Tom.
Thomas isn't Catholic, but he says his Catholic education transformed his view of the world.
It gives you another perspective on life, and you can use parts of Catholic teaching to better yourself and better the way you live.
Coming from St. Mark's, Thomas took that foundation and soared at Xavier. He became a track star and rose through the ranks of the school's intensive JROTC program, surprising himself with what he could achieve and completely shocking his former teachers.
He was kind of polite, quiet. I never envisioned him as a military type.
His middle school teacher, now principal of St. Mark's, Mark Wilson, says he couldn't be more proud.
He was always a helper, and that part of him has never changed. But even this exceeded my expectations of what he was capable of.
Thomas said he's hoping the family he found during his Catholic education he'll soon find again in the Air Force.
Having that family environment just makes it really easy to learn and do your best.
And his teachers say his story can serve as an example for all students.
Anyone who wants to enter the service to their country has to have a background of helping others. So to have a student like Thomas to turn that into possibly a career is really the ultimate goal for Catholic education.
Thomas starts 6 weeks of boot camp at the Air Force Academy on June 23rd. In Sheepshead Bay, Jessica Easthope, Currents News.
Congratulations to him. Still to come on Currents News.
Новый день он кажет путь.
She has the voice of an angel, how this little girl lifted spirits at a Ukrainian shelter when we come back. Finally tonight, the images coming from Ukraine have been hard to see and hear, and many of us couldn't even imagine what it would be like to live it. But a little girl hiding in a bomb shelter in Kyiv is keeping up spirits through song, telling friends, family, and the 3 million people who've seen her sing she's letting go of her fears. Tonight, we leave you with her. I'm Christine Persichetti. Hope to see you again next time.
Отпусти и забудь, что прошло уже не вернуть. Отпусти и забудь, новый день он кажет путь. Не боюсь ничего уже. Пусть бы шум ничто, холод всегда мне был по душе. А я иду все выше, на ледяную власть, и страха не вернувшись, меня уж не догнать. Пора узнать, что я могу, на помощь призову к себе во льдах навечно. Отпусти и забудь, что прошло уже не вернуть. Отпусти и забудь.